All right, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. My name is Jess Brooks. I work for the Nevada Department of Wildlife. I am the Southern Region Wildlife Education Coordinator. And tonight we are going to be talking about why we find cute wildlife so cute and the science behind it. And there's also a program that you can all participate in, which is very fun. And I'll go over all of that when we get to it. But first, on your screen, there's a very short paragraph, and I'm just going to explain a little bit about tonight's program before we jump into all of the facts that I have to share with you. So this is a family program and is rated PG. There are ways that you can participate with us tonight. There's the chat box, which I will be watching throughout the webinar. The chat box will be found in the top area or the bottom area of your screen, just depending on how your screen is laid out. And then there's also a Q&A box, which is where our moderator, Lauren, will be watching questions come in live. So if you do have a question for me or a question about what we're talking about or anything like that, all your questions can go into the Q&A box. All the questions and the chat should be on topic. I'll be asking you questions as well. You can answer through the chat. If you want to test that out now, while we were waiting, I asked everyone to identify the animal that we've got on the screen. I do see a lot of answers coming in, so thank you so much for participating. The answer is a ringtail. It's not a basilisk, but that's a great guess, which I love to see all the guesses come through. So the reason why I asked everyone ahead of time to identify what we've got on our screen is that throughout the presentation, there will be lots of other pictures of animals. So as those animals come up, while we're discussing what we've got, the facts, I want you all to see if we can identify what we're looking at. All right. All right, so like I said, tonight we're talking about why cute wildlife is so cute to us. And here's another animal if you'd like to take a shot at what we're looking at. Like I said, I am watching the chat. So if you'd like to test that out, type that in. I do see some answers coming through. This is a bighorn sheep. This is actually Nevada state animal. And here's another. So today we'll be talking about Nevada Knockout. This is the program that I mentioned earlier that everyone can participate in. It's super fun and way easy. Traits for cute scientifically. The science of why we find baby animals so cute in particular. There are a couple case study examples, and then everyone will be able to test their knowledge, and we're going to be spotlighting some of the cutest animals in Nevada, some of which will be participating in the Nevada Knockout program that I'll be talking about. So this little guy that we're looking at is a ringtail. This one is an adult. So good job. I like seeing those come through in the chat. All right, so very quickly, Nevada Knockout. This is that program that everyone can participate in. Nevada Knockout is very fun, easy way to encourage people to learn more about Nevada's wildlife. We chose 33 animals who call Nevada home to participate in a single elimination bracket style tournament. The idea is to research each animal, match up, and decide who would dominate a battle and advance to the next round in the bracket. We've got information-based web pages that you can go to help you get started in that research, but we've got schools participating, organizations participating, family and friends participating. It's super fun. Everything is very easy to find, and you can sign up as a member of the public to participate. The link is on your screen. You can also find it on our Facebook page. And just to give you an idea of what on earth this bracket looks like, you can see it on your screen. There are 4 groups. Tonight, we're spotlighting some of our Cutie Patooties, the animals that are found in the cute group, which is on your upper right in the bracket. Not all of the animals, but some of them. And then after you fill everything out, battles will start. and results will be posted on the 28th of September. That's this month. That's less than a week away. So you have a little bit of time. Go on the website, download your blank bracket, which is what you see, fill everything out, and see if you can guess right for our ultimate champion. Oh, I'm very sorry. This was a Costa's hummingbird. I did see some answers coming through, so really great job. All right, so why do we find cute wildlife so cute? Believe it or not, this is an adult animal. I won't tell you what species it is just yet. I will give you just a few moments to see if you can guess what species we're looking at. I'm gonna move my laser pointer out of the way too. And just to reiterate, if you would like to participate in Nevada Knockout, there is a sign up form that you'll fill out on the webpage when you get there. Very easy. And if you have questions about anything related to the competition this year, you can contact any one of our staff about it. All right, I see some answers coming through. This is a pygmy rabbit. So I actually didn't see a correct answer, but everyone was super close. So this is a pygmy rabbit. This is an adult pygmy rabbit. So traits for cuteness, there are scientifically proven traits that all animals, most animals, are subliminally looking for when we look at others. Those traits include large round eyes relative to the face, a large head, large rounded head, protruding cheeks and forehead, and your cheeks are up in this area, not down here, although sometimes that can be the whole thing. Rounded, soft, elastic features, large rounded bodies. This is a typical trait, but not every animal we find cute will have every one of these traits. And lastly, soft textures and fuzziness. Now, some may be looking at this list and thinking, of course that's why we find cute animals cute. But there's more to it than that. There are things happening in our brain that happen without us even knowing it. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll be able to pick up on those subliminal messages coming through. So for those of you who are participating in the chat and identifying our animals, this is a long-tailed weasel. So good job on that one. Like I said, there are a lot of things happening in the brain. So what exactly is going on? Being able to recognize cute features happens at a very young age. Even toddlers can recognize quote unquote cuter faces, according to a study by the University of Lincoln, which we'll look at a little bit later. That's why there's 2 stars next to that sentence there. In this study, multiple images were manipulated and shown to children to get a response out of them. The children were aged 3 to 6. And the responses that we got out of these kids were pretty incredible. And I've got graphs and all kinds of stuff to show you. Stimulation of the mesocorticolimbic system in the brain. That's the part of the brain that's associated with the process of motivation and reward. So how it works, when we see something we think is cute, our brains recognize the features that make us relate to our own young, a human baby. This causes a surge of neurotransmitters, specifically dopamine and oxytocin. So dopamine is the neurotransmitter that helps us fall in love, and oxytocin makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. These are associated with the reward pathway to the brains. They also play a key role in bonding with other animals, bonding with our own species, bonding with our own young, bonding with your parents, bonding with your kids, even bonding with your pets. There's a few more things happening in the brain. Rewarding feelings happen as soon as those neurotransmitters are triggered. So these enjoyable and rewarding feelings are committed to memory over time, letting us know that we want to feel those feelings again. So this emotional response also stimulates the motivation to care for the animal because their features remind us of our own children. When we feel all of these rewarding feelings and emotional responses, we have the urge to reach out, touch, pick it up, cuddle it, and care for it. This chemical and emotional response is so ingrained in the human brain that it can be triggered by other things, such as little creatures, little critters, little animals, and even inanimate objects with certain features. Looking at cuter images also makes us more attentive to detail, as another case study in 2012, where the scientists were studying people who were shown pictures and images of cute objects and animals, and for the images of cuter animals, the people that looked at those images performed better at tasks that required carefulness. So not only do we get feelings of warm and fuzzy, but we also have physical movements to actually become more gentle and more tender. Oh, I didn't identify them for you, I'm so sorry. What we've got at the very top is a coyote and its cub, and on the very bottom on the left is a Gambel's quail and its young, its chick. Alrighty, so a need to squeeze. There is something called cuteness aggression. It is a real thing. Cuteness aggression is when we see something so cute, we want to squeeze and smush something up. It sounds weird, but it's actually pretty normal. Our brains sense the cute, and as we see these features, we get those neurotransmitters firing. Our brain tries to overcompensate for it. So in another study done in 2015 by Yale University, the team there found that people who have extremely positive reactions to images of cute babies also displayed, quote unquote, stronger aggression expressions, which is like pinching babies' cheeks, for example. But as long as we don't actually harm the little critter we're looking at, we're fine, which very, very rarely happens. This overcompensation imbalance happens in a lot of people. It's very common. That secondary reaction to pinch the baby's cheeks or anything like that may be a reaction to scramble and temper the initial overwhelming emotion of wanting to squeeze and smush the little guy up. And if you are participating in the chat to identify the animals that we've got on the screen, the one on the left is a baby spotted skunk. The one on the right is a mountain lion. I do see some answers coming through the chat, so thank you for participating in that. So where did these traits even come from? There are a few places, and it happened over time. So bipedalism is one of them. In humans particularly, due to our bipedalism, our pelvises have shifted over time, meaning that women can't give birth to anything larger than a baby's head. Our human brains are already disproportionately large, especially when we're born, which is why a baby's head is so big and round at birth. A quick fun fact, a baby's skull is also soft at birth. The skull plates and soft spots fully form by the time we're between 9 and 18 months old. There is survival strategies in that. In the animal kingdom, there are animals that once born charge headfirst into the world without much care or assistance from their parents. They're pretty independent at birth. On the other side of the spectrum though, there are animals that depend greatly on their parents for food, water protection, etc., until they're able to fend for themselves. Now, imagine that if you're an animal faced with a choice, given limited resources, would you put all of your energy in having lots of offspring that are very independent at birth that you don't really have to care much for? Or would you put all your energy into very few offspring that you would have to spend a lot of time and energy and investment making sure that they make it to adulthood? And this is a big question for a lot of species. So in the chat, if you could answer that question for me, if you could choose, which strategy would you go for? And I'll explain what you see on your screen, the R selection and K selection. I'll kind of explain that. Reproduction focused is putting very little energy into all of your many offspring some animals will have litters or groups of chicks or clutches. You know, there are lots of names for little groups of offspring. Reproduction focused is having many young that are pretty independent at birth. Having investment focused or K-selection means you have usually 1 or 2 or maybe 3 offspring, and you're putting a lot of energy and a lot of investment into those very few offspring to ensure that they make it to adulthood. So I'm looking at the chat. I see less with more care, heavy investment. Anyone else want to participate? That would be great. It's interesting to see that because that's actually that K selection that a lot of you are entering into the chat. I do see 1 R selection, which is okay. But the majority of you have chosen to have K selection, which is heavy investment. That's what humans have. That's our strategy, heavy investment focused. We usually have 1 child at a time, sometimes twins or triplets, very rarely more than that. And we spend a lot of time and energy on making sure that our young make it to adulthood. So that's really interesting to see that. Some may argue that care for very few young never stops. Even for humans, when our child reaches the age of 18, even beyond that, we're still caring for our children. So that's interesting to see. Thank you for participating, those who did. Another question for everyone who's listening and hanging out with us tonight. What are some examples of those reproduction focused animals? If humans are heavy investment focused, K selection, can you think of any other examples of animals that are reproduction focused, R selection? I have a couple examples to share with you, but if you could think of any, type them into the chat and I can announce them as they come through. Ooh, turtles, fish, rabbits, absolutely. Quail, yes. Crocodiles, yep, all of that. Sea turtles. My one example that I have for you is our desert tortoise, which is our state reptile, because they will lay eggs, bury them, and then disappear forever. They don't really have any say, and you know, once they're young hatch, the young are kind of on their own. Fish, absolutely, fish is a good one. Okay, so thank you very much. For those of you who are participating in the identification side of tonight's webinar, what we're looking at is a young spotted sandpiper. And on the very bottom left is a desert horned lizard. And I did see horny toad come up in the chat. That's also correct. There are some of these features that are rooted in a need for survival. Humans are biologically hardwired to respond to human babies with a nurturing reaction, right? We're responding to our own young in a nurturing way. Human infants are helpless little things, and they make us want to scoop them up and protect them. We need to like our own species of babies, human babies, so that we can take care of them. That impulse is because our babies need round-the-clock care from adults in order to survive. We just talked about that heavy investment strategy. The instinct is so ingrained in all humans, and this is a way to preserve our species and ensure the human race will live on. In comparison though, if we look at the animals on the screen, for example, a turkey vulture, which is what the top left little chick is, or a barn owl, which is what the picture on the right is. If we're looking at a turkey vulture or a barn owl and they're young, some people might not find them as cute as other babies. So if you would compare these bird babies, these chicks, to a human baby, you as an individual might think, well, yeah, the human baby is much cuter, and that's ingrained in us. But it's speculated that these species, for example, the turkey vulture parents and the barn owl parents, they feel the same good chemicals and the same neurotransmitters are firing, and they feel that they need to take care of their own young just the same as we need to take care of our young. So the same things are happening in our brains, but it's species specific. And like I said earlier, those features that we talked about, those large round eyes, the fuzziness, not all babies have these features, but we do see just a couple of them here. And this is that impulse that we were talking about. So it is species specific, and other animals might find other species cute, like humans, for example, will find most other animal babies cute, but maybe not a barn owl. I think they're adorable, but in a different way. The baby schema. This is a really important concept, and this is what the case study that I talked about earlier, the one that you guys get to participate in a little bit, is it tested the baby schema. So the baby schema is specifics about what we have already covered this evening. A tried and tested set of infantile physical characteristics: large round head, large round eyes, fuzziness, elastic features, things like that. These physical characteristics remind us of our own human babies. This provokes our innate desire to take care of something and cuddle it, scoop it up, take care of it, provide shelter for it, provide resources for it. There is a case study though that manipulated some images and showed these images to children ages 3 through 6. And I have some of these images to share with you, not all of them, of course, but just a few. And hopefully we can elicit some of this caretaking behavior with you, who's participating with me tonight. And the case study was specifically baby schema manipulation. So on your screen, this is some of the pictures that were manipulated. You'll see a row for human and a row for dog and a row for cat. Now, these are just examples. The pictures that were actually part of the study included quite a few more species, but I wanted to use these 3 because I thought everyone would be able to relate to them. So these pictures were manipulated. Some were stretched horizontally, and some were pushed together horizontally in both young and adult species. So these pictures were shown to ages 3 through 6, you know, kids, using cuteness ratings, and this is how they did it. They used eye gaze patterns, and the results showed that the specific location of the facial features directly were linked to the same parts of the brain that when these children were looking at these pictures, many of them were looking at the eyes first, as opposed to any other part of the body, any other part of the face. And there was a whole spectrum too. So what I'm showing you are the extremes, but there was a whole spectrum within these photos. So here are the results in a little bit more of an explanation, and I'm gonna take my laser pointer out. So these 2 stars that you see here, this is the part where we get to participate a little tonight. And I have pictures and polls for you a little bit later. So the adult image versus the young image, these children that were looking at these images that were manipulated, they preferred the younger images. They preferred looking at the younger images. And they based that on how long these children were looking at the images on the screen. And the humans and canines have shown to gaze first at the eyes to read emotion. And that is what humans are doing too. So during the study, they noticed that all of these children that were looking at pictures on the screen during the study, their eyes were gazing specifically at the eyes of the other animals, the eyes of what was on the screen first. And throughout the study, they also discovered that other animals do the same thing. So your pets, your dogs and your cats, other animals in nature will usually look at your eyes first before looking at any other part of the face. And this is part of reading emotion and facial expression. And in fact, they were discovering that we were all, or these children that were part of the study, were looking at the left eye first, which is really fascinating. All right, it's our turn. So what I'm gonna ask everyone participating, now you don't have to participate, but it is going to be fun. Hopefully, after sitting through all of what I've got tonight, hopefully you'll be able to recognize some of these feelings that you're having after learning about them. You know, all these warm, fuzzy feelings spreading throughout your brain, you're right, the cuteness factor. So what I'm gonna show everyone are pictures of animals, and then you get to rate them. So a poll will pop up on your screen as soon as I go to the next slide. Our moderator, Lauren, will be presenting the polls to everybody, and I would like everyone to rate them for me. So a 5 is maximum cuteness, a 1 is not that cute. Now, I don't know what to expect, to be honest. I don't know if everyone will just rate everything a 5. Maybe not, but after listening to and learning about all of what's actually happening in your brain, the science behind it, you might be able to recognize that and the scores might go down. So we'll see. And then I'll also share results with everyone too. Alrighty, so poll number 1, let's get that going. This is the animal that I would like everyone to rate. I will not be participating in the poll. But this is a river otter, and I will give everyone just a few moments to rate the river otter. And also I'll be talking a little bit about the river otter. So river otters usually hunt at nighttime. They're mostly nocturnal. They live in lakes, rivers, and wetlands. They're not very long. They weigh between 10 and 30 pounds. Their favorite food is fish, but they also eat amphibians, turtles, and crayfish. They're also known to eat whatever is easiest to find: crustaceans, snails, insects, frogs, rodents. They do communicate with each other through whistles, yelps, growls, and screams, as well as touch and body posture, which is really fascinating. All right, so let's end the polling. That was a whole minute, and share the results. And it looks like over 60% of the audience tonight thought that this was a 5, maximum cuteness. 30% of you rated this animal as a 4. 4% of you, 1 of you said a 3, and 1 of you said a 2. Nobody rated this animal as a 1. Awesome. All right, let's move on to the next animal. This is a kit fox. So let's start the kit fox poll. And while everyone is rating, I'll tell you a little bit about the kit fox. So they're not very long. They're actually one of the smallest foxes that we have. Their average height is around 14 to 15 inches from the ground to the shoulder. Their head a little bit above that. They prefer grassland, scrublands, meadows, open areas. They usually occur in the lower and dry deserts. They have multiple dens, especially in the summer months. They can also take over and push out other wildlife. They can modify their dens and make dens in man-made structures like culverts, abandoned pipes, and roadbeds and washes. They love rabbits, rodents, insects, reptiles. They also eat ground nesting birds and their eggs, and some vegetation, but not very often. All right, that's a full minute, so let's end that poll. It looks like, wow, 43% of you said that this animal was rated as a 4. 29% rated it as a 5. 4 of you said a 3, and 2 of you said a 2. No one rated this animal as a 1, which is, okay, that's awesome. I love the results. Okay, next animal is a desert tortoise. So let's get that, that poll going for the desert tortoise. You have a full minute. So a desert tortoise, this is our state reptile. Their lifespan is 50 to 80 years in the wild, which is amazing. They spend about 95% of their life underground in burrows and rock shelters. They're inactive most of the year. Desert tortoises grow in the winter while they're brumating, which is very similar to hibernating. And this allows them to survive freezing temperatures, although they normally exist here in the lower desert, the hot desert. They can actually brumate for 9 months. They only weigh about 18 to 15 pounds. They're herbivores and eat wildflowers, cacti, and their fruits, herbs, and grasses. They can also completely withdraw all their head, and their limbs will cover up that opening with their hard scales on the outside. Alrighty, so that was a full minute. Let's close the polling. This guy, this animal rated a little bit differently. 29% of you rated this animal as a 4. That was most of you. Next was 24% of you rated a desert tortoise as a 3. 19% of you rated the desert tortoise as a 2. And only 3 of you rated it as a 5, and 3 of you rated it as a 1. So this was all over the place. That's really fascinating. Okay, so let's look at the next animal. This is a saw-whet owl. All right, you have a full minute to rate. A saw-whet owl, they are mostly nocturnal. They're pretty little, averaging about 7.5 to 8 inches tall. Their habitat is dense conifer forests and woodlands, riparian areas, wherever there's abundance of trees and prey. They mainly eat deer mice and small rodents, usually about 2 mice per night. They're extremely important to the ecosystem, but they can also eat shrews, voles, young squirrels, even birds and large insects like grasshoppers. They're seen in nature often resting at eye level in trees, but their defense is to sit very still and not fly to try and camouflage in with their surroundings. This doesn't mean that they're tame though. So like any wild animal, never approach them, just look with your eyes. This little animal, their distinct feature is the white Y shape between their eyes. Alrighty, that was a full minute. Let's close the polling and see what we've got. 70% of you rated this animal as a 5, which is, you know, I kind of expected that. This owl is extremely cute. 22% of you rated it as a 4. 9% of you, or 2 of you, rated this animal as a 3. No one rated the saw-whet owl as a 2 or a 1, which is interesting. All right. Let's move on to the next animal. Oh, which is a bobcat. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the bobcat. There are pictures on your screen. One is the adult and one is the kitten. These animals are, they have a really unique bobbed black-tipped tail and tufted ears. That's kind of their identifying feature. They're on their face and the rest of their fur, they have spots and can sometimes turn into a little bit of some stripiness happening, but not very typical. Their habitat is any area that has sufficient prey. They like dense cover, protection from bad weather, and lots of variety for denning sites. So that could be, you know, pinyon juniper pines, that could be low desert, that could be up in the montane area, riparian, you know, really anywhere. They're excellent hunters. They're very patient and silent when they stalk their prey and then attack with one giant pounce. They're active at twilight when prey tend to forage. Their diet is normally rabbits and hares, rodents, birds, bats, even young deer or young sheep. All right, that was a little bit more than a minute, but that's okay. Let's end the polling. 73% of you rated the Bobcat as a 5. 23%, 5 of you, said that this was a 4. 5% or 1 of you rated this animal as a 3. Nobody rated this animal as a 2 or a 1. All right, the mallard. I believe this is the last poll. So mallards they're dabbling ducks, meaning they have long, hefty bodies and their broad tails ride high in the water. They feed by dipping their heads down into the water and keeping their rear ends high up out of the water and straining anything they can that's small out of the water, like plant material, seed material, insect larvae, earthworms, snails, anything that can be real small and strain through their small straining systems within their bill. They can also feed on the ground by eating any of those things, including grass. They don't weigh very much. They're one of the most iconic birds of the West, simply because the drakes, or the males, have that really dark green iridescent head. Male and female dimorphism is where the females and the males, or the drake and the hen in this case, look very different. Their habitat, any wetland, lake, pond, marsh, river, etc. They're super versatile. They really love being near water though. Their nesting pattern, they usually nest on the ground or dry land close to water. All right, let's close the polling. 68% of you rated the mallard as a 5, maximum cuteness. 9% of you rated it as a 4, but double that, 18% of you rated it as a 3. Only 1 of you rated this as a 2. That's great. That's awesome. So before we jump into some questions that I may not have been able to answer, while we were going through these polls, I purposely chose animals that are normally thought of as adorable or cute and cuddly, but I also put in there animals that many of us might not think of originally as cute, like the desert tortoise or the mallard. But it was really interesting to see the results, because a lot of you rated the kit fox as a 5, whereas the desert tortoise, a lot of you rated it as a 2 or a 3. So while we were talking about all of the science behind what makes animals so cute to us, hopefully you were able to recognize some of those things happening within your brain, right? All of those neurotransmitters being fired, not literally feeling that happen, but feeling those warm fuzzies, recognizing that those are the features your brain is looking for. And that happens subconsciously. We don't really have any control of that. So let me peer into the Q&A box super quick. And it looks like all of the questions were answered. Thank you so much for participating. Before I let you go though, if you're participating in the animal identification, this is a pika holding some grasses and flowers for us. And again, I really want to thank everyone. You can actually help us out by taking our very short survey that will automatically pop up right after we say goodbye. We always are looking to improve our programs, so getting your feedback really helps us a lot. And lastly, join us for more programs like this. On our Facebook page under the events, we have so many more programs that follow this structure from all of our very passionate, super intelligent staff. Tonight's was about cute animals and why we find these animals so cute. The goal of this program was to introduce people to the science behind that and also to the Nevada Knockout program. There are 3 other categories that 3 other categories of animals that are participating in Nevada Knockout this year. We've got programming on those, so check them out, register for them, they're super fun. And lastly, if you are going to go outside, we want you to practice responsible recreation and embrace the outdoors. Be safe, be careful, take care of the outdoors, always leave it nicer than when you first got there. You know, we want it to always be better than when we found it for future generations and other people that want to go out and enjoy the outdoors. So hopefully this will help you enjoy the outdoors and viewing wildlife, because now you know the science behind why we find cute wildlife so cute. I do see everyone saying thank you in the chat. Thank you from our end as well. Hopefully we'll see you on another webinar. All right, have a good night, everybody, and thank you again.